Back to the point though about the drivers on the grid and the regs and the balance. I agree with the balance between the veterans and the young up and coming stars. But what I really liked about it was that you had Vettel and Weber, Fernando and Felipe, Lewis and Jensen, Kimi, Nico and Michael. And off those drivers, somebody was going to finish ninth
Hmm.
every weekend. I mean, that's how you know you have a good grid. That those are quality drivers. Every one of those drivers is a quality driver. Some of them are great, some of them are very good, but they're all quality. And for one of those drivers to finish ninth is a disaster. It's a bad race for that driver. And that's what you want to see. You want to see every weekend these guys going at it and the prospect of just totally unpredictable results. And that's how F1 should be. I keep talking about this and I'm at risk of sounding like a broken record, but there's just a lot of dead weight on the grid today. I really mean that. There are just a lot of drivers that just shouldn't even be anywhere near a Formula One car, in my opinion. And unfortunately, the top end of the grid today, I believe, is very exclusive and not exactly close to the rest of them. You know, Verstappen, Hamilton, and Alonso have a way bigger advantage over the rest of the grid than any driver had in 2012, in my opinion.
Hmm.
You had an elite core in 2012 that was, I think, Hamilton, Alonso, Vettel, Raikkonen. Then you can throw in Jensen, Nico. These guys were all close. And that's why we had a great season. Everybody was just going at it. Everybody was super talented and relatively respectful. And that's what Formula One needs to do. You need to, bring the quality drivers, put them in the top seats, and try and limit the number of either young and experienced pay drivers or actually any pay driver in general. I think it hurts the racing. And 2012 was an excellent example of that, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Anyways, I think yeah, I think I also agree with the points that you both made there. So, just wanted to point that out. Um,
I think you can see
do-
kind of. I think if you look at kind of almost the disappointment Vettel has with this race, I think part of it is because he's probably got people on the radio kind of screaming to him about, the alternator failure on Weber and positions of Alonso and kind of where everything is, and he's kind of being maybe kind of inclined to look more towards the championship as well. What I quite like is you can almost kind of see if he is kind of being managed that way and forced to pull back, almost the pettiness of that kind of last lap where he goes 1.8 seconds quicker than Hamilton. I know Hamilton is managing at this point in time, but almost just kind of say, if I wanted to, I could have done it. I think it's only it's about 0.6 between them at the very end.
Mm. And
Interesting.
he took
Yeah,
fastest lap as well
Yeah.
on the final lap.
yeah. That's an interesting point. I think that all probably weighed on his mind, to be honest. Between that and the championship, I think Vettel was in risk management mode in some parts of this race.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, this is just
yeah,
character profiling. I can't say it's for certain, but I think about people who are concerned about things failing, whether it's important to win the race or not. I think the people on the pit wall are much more concerned about that than Vettel is. But I think, again, to use sort of one of those old F1 analogies, they say that if a car is working at 99.99% capacity, there's still 100 things that could go wrong. And so you wonder that if Vettel is driving at 99.99% capacity, it's just that little fraction that Hamilton, who is going above and aboard just to kind of get that one last McLaren win, whether that just makes that slight difference there.
Because
Yeah.
if Vettel had retired from this race, he would have lost the championship as well. Because Alonso then would have finished second, but then Vettel losing 18 points gives it to Alonso very comfortably.
Hmm.
I can't do the maths on top of my head of how he could have still won it in Brazil, but it probably would have been winning it with Alonso like 8th or lower or something. But yeah, because at the beginning of the race, it looked like he was going to take the title because he was first and Alonso was 7th, but then Webber retires and Ferrari are suddenly so much faster than everyone expected them to be, and that's just not the case. Which in many ways is a good thing that it was done in the way it was, much more entertaining and memorable way.
Yeah, there's one thing. I mean, we talked about sort of pacemakers earlier, and kind of, I think, Kyron, you were sort of saying we didn't have a kind of clear state of what was going to happen going into the race. But I mean, a lot of people would have predicted Vettel because I think he was fastest in every single session, not just practice, but every single one, Q1, Q2, and Q3. It was only really when we got to Q3 that sort of Hamilton got within a tenth of him. But I think from an outsider, I think you're right, Peter. I think we would have kind of been almost writing off the championship at that point because how good
Right.
Vettel was looking and how much Alonso had struggled that time.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. I think if you had to put money on someone before the race, you surely have put it on Vettel. But it was close in qualifying between Hamilton and Vettel. And, frankly speaking, if Hamilton and Vettel are starting on the front row, I'm afraid I'm always going to bet on Hamilton in the long run. And races like this are examples of why. Lewis just managed the race a little bit better and seemed to just have a lot more confidence in the key moments. Of course, there were some things that affected Vettel, but with Seb, he is just such a tremendous driver overall, but you feel that in wheel-to-wheel combat, there are drivers who are better. Hamilton is one of those drivers. Fernando Alonso is another one. Guess what? Kimi Räikkönen is another one. These are guys who love going wheel to wheel and come out on top a lot of the time. With Seb, I just never. It was amazing. I mean, he had the fastest car and he won so much, but I also always had a feeling that if Seb has a challenge, anything can happen. Because, again, Seb is a tremendous driver. But if he's going wheel to wheel with one of those other great world champions, I'm not sure if I'm putting money on Seb in
I
any
seem to remember
scenario.
that was the kind of discussion that was having at the time. I mean, maybe that was just kind of within my household, but there was always a sense that, if you get Vettel, he puts it on pole and then blitzes the start, that's it, game over. Once
Yeah.
he's at the front and can control it, that's when he's at his absolute best. He can manage it, he can push, he knows exactly what to do. But like you say, when you get in those situations where, oh no, there's suddenly a scrap or he's slightly further down than he should be, this wasn't that long after, we had, instance like when he collided with Webber in Istanbul. I know he's gained a lot more experience in world championships since that point in time, but there was still that question mark. And I think that did kind of carry over when he went to Ferrari as well. He would be prone to maybe those mistakes when he wasn't at the front and was kind of more mired somewhere else or needed to kind of battle away.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever won a race from outside the top three.
No, he hasn't. His proportion of wins from pole is actually lower than it's lower than Hamilton's and might be lower than Schumacher actually. But
That's
yeah,
interesting.
unlike he's never won. I've got the stats. 2 seconds. But yeah, he's never won outside the top three. So
Exactly. So that's. I mean, let's be honest. That's not a very good stat, and I believe that is an important stat because that is a good indicator of your ability to come through a field with or without the fastest car and win. And it suggests that Vettel, as Chicane mentioned, and as we've all discussed, Vettel does need that margin at the start. He does need that clear air or the ability to kind of nestle into his position to build his race. This is not a driver you want to task with passing the entire grid and making daring overtakes left, right, and center. That's the last world champion of this century I actually want in that position. And that's
Yeah.
That's what I think. Anyways, I mean, Peter, I don't know if you have more stats on that, but
So just looking at my table quickly. So Vettel, 31 of his 53 wins are from poles. That's 58.5%. For Hamilton, 61 of his 103 from poles. That's 59%. Schumacher, 40 from pole from 91 wins. That's 44%. And then Verstappen, it's 25 from 49. So that's 51%. So Schumacher and Verstappen are quite noticeably lower than both. And then Verstappen has the most positions he's won from, because he's won from 9 different positions. Schumacher's won from 8, but he has the lowest winning position, which is 16th.
that was Spa in '95, I think.
And yeah, for Hamilton, his lowest is 14th, and that of course was Hockenheim 2018. And then Verstappen's 13th. So is that Hungary or was that Spa? There was Spa last year, wasn't it? He was 13th.
I think it was
Yeah, it's one of the Spa. Yeah,
10th was Spa. 10th was Hungary. But yeah, Vettel 16 wins from second and 6 from third, but no lower than that.
Again, that's another reason we need to get more cars on the grid so that Verstappen can break that record of sort of starting the furthest back.
Exactly.
I think 22nd. I think John Watson started when he won another American race. I forget which one.
81 or
Not
80
including Indianapolis.
Long Beach.
Long Beach.
Yeah.
Him and
Long
Lauda.
Beach, yeah.
Him and Lauda finished 1-2, I think.
Yes,
And
that's
then
right.
Barrichello won from 20th, Germany 2000, didn't he?
Was that 20th or 18th?
No, I think
18th, it was right. It was somewhere right near the back. But yeah. I mean, Vettel almost did this. Germany 2019, he started 20th and he finished second. So he was only a few seconds away from winning. That race gets forgotten so much for him, but it's like that's one of his best drives. It's just because he didn't win it. Like,